The nurse saw flames swallowing the mansion. She heard a child screaming inside. Without thinking, she ran through the fire and pulled him out. What she didn't know, the boy's father was the most feared Mafia boss in the city, and he wasn't letting her leave. The gas gauge had been flashing red for the last 10 miles, but Clara Evans couldn't afford to stop. Not tonight. Not when her shift at St. Michael's Hospital had run 3 hours over, and her babysitter charged $20 for every hour past midnight. She gripped the steering wheel of her ancient Honda, doing the math in her head for the 100th time that week. Rent, $1,500. Utilities, $220. Mia's asthma medication, $340. Her daughter's 6th birthday was in 2 weeks, and Clara had exactly $73 in her checking account. The road stretched dark and empty through the outskirts of the city, lined with iron gates and tall hedges that hid the mansions of people who never had to choose between gas and groceries. Clara cranked down the window. The air conditioning had died last summer, and let the October wind whip through her hair. That's when she saw it. Orange light, angry and alive, clawing at the night sky. Clara's foot hit the brake before her mind could process what she was seeing. Through the ornate gates of a sprawling estate, flames devoured a 3-story mansion, spitting smoke into the darkness. The fire roared with a sound like 1,000 voices screaming. She should keep driving. She should call 911 and let someone else handle it. She'd been a nurse for 8 years, and the first rule of emergency response was clear: don't become a victim yourself. But then she heard it. A child scream, high and terrified, cutting through the fire's roar. Clara's hands moved on their own. She yanked the wheel, her tires screeching as she swerved through the open gates. The circular driveway was empty, no cars, no people, no fire trucks. How was that possible? A house this size, this expensive, and no one had called for help. She slammed the car into park and ran. The heat hit her like a wall, but she didn't stop. Her scrubs, stained with coffee and a 12-year-old's nosebleed from the ER, were soaked with sweat before she reached the front door. It hung open, smoke pouring out like a toxic waterfall. "Hello," she screamed. "Is anyone there?" The child's cry came again, weaker now, from somewhere on the 2nd floor. Clara ripped off her cardigan, pressed it against her nose and mouth, and plunged inside. The entryway was chaos. Flames consumed the walls, racing up curtains that probably cost more than her car. A crystal chandelier swayed overhead, groaning against its chain. The smoke was so thick she could barely see 3 feet ahead. "Keep crying, baby," she shouted. "Let me hear you." A whimper, faint and desperate, guided her to the grand staircase. The marble steps were already cracking from the heat, and the banister blazed like a torch. Clara took them 2 at a time, her lungs burning, her eyes streaming. The 2nd floor hallway was an inferno. Doorways gaped like mouths breathing fire. Clara followed the sound of sobbing to a bedroom at the end of the hall, where a small figure huddled in the corner, trapped between a burning bed and a wall of flames. He couldn't have been more than 8 years old. Dark hair, olive skin, expensive pajamas, and eyes wide with terror. "I've got you," Clara gasped, dropping to her knees beside him. She wrapped him in her wet cardigan and pulled him against her chest. "Close your eyes. Don't look. Just hold on to me." Behind them, something exploded, a window, a beam. She didn't know and didn't care. The boy locked his thin arms around her neck as she ran. The staircase was collapsing. Clara could see it happening in slow motion, marble splitting, with splintering, the entire structure folding in on itself like a house of cards. She didn't think. She just jumped. They hit the entryway floor hard, Clara twisting at the last second to take the impact. Pain shot through her shoulder, but she kept moving, half running, half crawling, dragging the boy toward the open door. The night air had never tasted so sweet. Clara collapsed on the lawn 50 feet from the house, the boy still clutched in her arms. She could hear sirens now, distant but getting closer. Her vision swam. Smoke inhalation, Her clinical mind noted distantly. Second-degree burns on her hands. Possible concussion. The boy was coughing, crying, but alive. "You're okay," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was talking to him or herself. "You're okay now." Headlights flooded the driveway, so bright Clara had to close her eyes. Car doors slammed. Footsteps thundered toward them, lots of them running. "Leo," a man's voice roared, raw with panic and rage.
Lie.
Strong hands lifted the boy from her arms. Clara tried to protest, tried to hold on, but her body wouldn't obey anymore. She was so tired. "Boss, there's a woman. Is he breathing? Is my son breathing?" "Yes, sir, but—" "Then deal with her."
Now.
Through her blurring vision, Clara saw him. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black suit despite the late hour. He knelt on the grass, cradling the boy, Leo, with a gentleness that contradicted everything about his hard face and harder eyes. Those eyes found hers across the smoke-stained lawn. For one moment, the feared Mafia patriarch Damien Moretti looked at the exhausted nurse in coffee-stained scrubs, and something shifted in his expression. Not gratitude. Not yet. Something deeper and more dangerous. Recognition. Like he was seeing something he'd lost and found again in the same breath. Then Clara's world went black. Clara's lungs were on fire. She gasped awake, clawing at her throat, her body convinced it was still drowning in smoke. Strong hands pressed her shoulders back against silk sheets, and a calm voice spoke in accented English. "Easy, miss. You're safe. Breathe slowly." Her vision cleared to reveal an elderly man in a white coat holding a stethoscope. Behind him, floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a sunrise painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. This wasn't a hospital. The room was too elegant, too expensive, with crown molding and oil paintings and furniture that belonged in a museum. "Where?" Her voice came out as a croak. "Where am I?" "The Moretti estate," the doctor said, as if that explained everything. "You collapsed from smoke inhalation. I've treated your burns and given you oxygen. You're very lucky, miss." Another minute in that fire. The fire.
The boy.
The mansion collapsing. Clara sat up too fast, and the room tilted.
Lie.
"The child. Is he okay?" "Master Leo is fine. Thanks to you." The doctor packed his instruments into a leather bag. "A few minor burns, some smoke damage to his lungs, but he'll recover fully. You saved his life." Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by panic. "What time is it?" "Nearly 7 in the morning." 7 in the morning. She'd been unconscious for hours. "I have to go. I have to get home." Clara swung her legs off the bed and immediately regretted it. Her hands were wrapped in gauze, her shoulders screamed in protest, and she was wearing a silk nightgown that definitely wasn't hers. "I wouldn't recommend leaving just yet," the doctor said carefully. "Mr. Moretti wishes to speak with you." As if summoned by his name, the door opened. Damien Moretti looked different in daylight. Still tall, still intimidating, but the panic from last night had been replaced by something more controlled, more dangerous. He wore a fresh suit, his dark hair perfectly styled, but Clara could see the shadows under his eyes. He hadn't slept. "Leave us," he said to the doctor. It wasn't a request. The doctor practically scurried out, closing the door behind him. Clara found herself alone with a man she'd only seen on the news, usually in grainy photos accompanying stories about organized crime investigations that never quite stuck. "You're awake." Damien moved to the window, his back to her.
Good.
"We need to talk." "I need to leave," Clara said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I have a daughter. She's with a babysitter. I need to get home." "Your daughter is 6 years old. Her name is Mia." Damien turned to face her, and Clara's blood went cold. "She has asthma. She attends Roosevelt Elementary. Your babysitter, Mrs. Chun, has been compensated generously for her extended services and informed that you're safe." The room suddenly felt smaller. "How do you?" I know everything about you, Clara Evans. He crossed his arms. Single mother. Divorced 3 years ago from Marcus Evans, a construction worker who pays child support when he remembers to. You work double shifts at St. Michael's to make ends meet. You drive a 2008 Honda Civic that should have died 2 years ago. You have $17,000 in student loan debt, and your rent is 2 months overdue. Clara's hands clenched into fists despite the bandages. You had no right. I had every right. His voice was quiet, but it cut like a blade. You saved my son's life. That means I need to know who you are. And more importantly, I need to know if someone sent you. Sent me? Clara stared at him. I was driving home from work. I saw a fire. I heard a child screaming. What was I supposed to do, keep driving? Most people would have. Damien studied her with those dark, unreadable eyes. Most people would have called 911 and waited for professionals. You ran into a burning building without hesitation. That makes you either very brave or very stupid. I'm a nurse, Clara said flatly. It's what we do. Or, he continued as if she hadn't spoken, it makes you an exceptional actress working for someone who wants me to lower my guard. The accusation hit her like a slap. You think I set that fire? That I risked my life, that I could have died, just to what? Gain your trust. The fire was arson, Damien said. Set professionally. Time to trap my son in his bedroom while I was away on business. Someone knew the security codes, the guard rotations, the precise moment to strike. He moved closer and Clara forced herself not to flinch. You appeared at exactly the right moment to play hero. That's quite a coincidence. It's not a coincidence, it's luck. Clara's voice rose despite her fear. Bad luck for whoever set that fire. Good luck for your son. I don't know anything about security codes or guard rotations. I don't even know who you really are beyond what I've seen on the news. Then let me enlighten you. Damien's smile was cold. I'm the man who decides whether you walk out of here or stay until I'm satisfied you're not a threat. The words hung in the air between them like smoke. You can't keep me here, Clara whispered. That's kidnapping. No, Damien walked to the door, his hand on the knob. That's protection. Someone tried to kill my son last night. You're a witness. Until I find out who lit that fire and why, you don't leave my sight. That's insane. That's gratitude. He opened the door, revealing 2 large men in suits standing in the hallway. My men will bring you anything you need. Your daughter will be cared for. You'll want for nothing. Except freedom, Clara said bitterly. Damien paused in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Freedom is overrated when you're dead, Miss Evans. Trust me on that. The door closed with a soft click. And the lock turned. Clara didn't scream. She didn't pound on the door, or throw things or collapse into tears, though every instinct told her to do all 3. Instead, she walked to the window and tested it.
Locked.
Of course. She was 3 stories up, overlooking manicured gardens that probably cost more to maintain than her annual salary. Beyond the gardens, a high stone wall topped with cameras. Beyond that, the city skyline glittered in the morning sun, so close and impossibly far away. Her phone was gone.
Her clothes were gone.
Even her battered nurse's shoes had vanished, replaced by silk slippers that whispered against the hardwood floor. A gilded cage was still a cage. The door opened without warning, and Clara spun around, her heart hammering. But it wasn't Damien. It was a young woman in a maid's uniform, pushing a cart laden with silver-covered dishes. "Good morning, Miss Evans," she said with a practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I've brought breakfast. Mr. Moretti thought you might be hungry." "I need to make a phone call," Clara said.
Please.
"Just let me call my daughter." The maid's smile flickered.
I'm sorry.
"I have orders." "I don't care about orders." Clara's composure cracked. "My little girl doesn't know where I am."
She's probably terrified.
"Please, just 5 minutes." "I'm sorry," the maid repeated, softer this time, almost sympathetic. She set the food on a table and hurried out, the lock clicking behind her. Clara stared at the breakfast spread. Eggs Benedict, fresh fruit, pastries that looked like they'd been imported from Paris. Her stomach growled traitorously. She hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon, a vending machine sandwich between patients. She ate mechanically, tasting nothing, her mind racing. Think like a nurse, she told herself. Assess the situation. Find the exits. After breakfast, she explored her prison more thoroughly. The bedroom connected to a marble bathroom stocked with expensive toiletries. The closet held women's clothing in her exact size, designer labels she recognized from magazine covers. Dresses, slacks, sweaters, all tasteful and expensive and completely wrong. She chose the simplest outfit she could find, black pants and a white blouse, and tried the door again. Still locked. Hours crawled by. Clara paced, sat, paced again. She tried to imagine what Mrs. Chun had told Mia. Mommy had to work late, but how long would that excuse work? A day? 2 days? What happened when Mia asked why Mommy wasn't answering her phone? Late afternoon sunlight slanted through the windows when the lock turned again. Clara stood, ready to demand her release, but it wasn't a maid this time. It was Leo. The boy stood in the doorway, clutching a piece of paper, his other hand held by one of Damien's guards. He looked small in fresh pajamas, his dark hair damp from a recent bath. Small bandages covered burns on his arms. Master Leo wanted to see you, the guard said gruffly. 5 minutes. Leo approached slowly, shy now that Clara wasn't carrying him through fire. He held out the paper, a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures. One tall with dark hair, one small, one with Clara's curly hair. Labels underneath in a child's handwriting. Dad, me, Clara. I made this for you, Leo said quietly. Papa says you saved my life. Clara's throat tightened. She knelt to his level despite the pain in her shoulder. How are you feeling, sweetheart? My arms hurt. But Dr. Russo says I'll be okay. He looked at her with eyes too solemn for a child. Papa says you're staying here now. Are you? Clara didn't know how to answer that. I don't know, Leo. I hope you do. He leaned forward and hugged her, careful of her bandaged hands. It gets lonely here. The guard cleared his throat. Time's up, Master Leo. As they led him away, Leo turned back. Thank you for coming into the fire. Nobody's ever been that brave for me before. The door locked again, and Clara pressed her forehead against the cool wood, fighting tears. This wasn't just about her anymore. That little boy had lost his mother to a fire, Damien's wife, she remembered from news reports years ago. And now he'd nearly died the same way. No wonder Damien was paranoid. But that didn't give him the right to imprison her. Dinner arrived on another silver tray. Then the sun set, and the room grew dark. Clara refused to turn on the lights, sitting by the window and watching the city glow in the distance. Somewhere out there, Mia was going to bed without a goodnight kiss. Without a bedtime story. Without her mother. The lock turned a 3rd time, and Clara didn't bother standing. I'm not hungry. That's not why I'm here. Damien's voice. Clara turned to find him silhouetted in the doorway, jacket gone, tie loosened. He looked exhausted. My son asked me to give you this. He held out a cell phone. You have 10 minutes to call your daughter. Supervised. And if you say anything about your location. Clara snatched the phone before he could finish. Her hands shook as she dialed Mrs. Chen's number. Hello. Mrs. Chen, it's Clara. Can I talk to Mia? Please. Mommy. Mia's voice burst through the speaker, and Clara's eyes flooded. Where are you? Mrs. Chen said you had to help sick people, but you always call. I know, baby. I'm so sorry. Clara turned away from Damien, curling around the phone like it was the only thing keeping her alive. I'm still at the hospital, but I wanted to hear your voice. Are you being good? I drew a picture at school. It's us at the beach. Can we go to the beach for my birthday? Clara closed her eyes. We'll see, sweetheart. I love you so much. Be good for Mrs. Chun, okay? Okay. Love you, Mommy. The call ended, and Clara stood there holding the dead phone, trembling. Thank you, she whispered without looking at him. Don't thank me. Damien's voice was rough. Thank Leo. He wouldn't stop asking, he paused. Your daughter will be cared for. I've arranged for a better babysitter, enrolled her in a program that covers her medical expenses. I don't want your money. Clara spun to face him. I want to go home. You can't for just a moment. Something flickered in his eyes. Not anger. Something closer to regret.
Not yet.
Someone tried to murder my child, Miss Evans. Until I know you're not involved, and until I know you're not a target yourself, you stay here. A target? Why would I be a target? Because, Damien said quietly, whoever set that fire knows you pulled Leo out. And if they wanted my son dead badly enough to burn down my house, they won't leave loose ends. He left, and the lock turned. Clara sank onto the bed, Leo's drawing clutched in her burned hands, and finally let herself cry. 3 days passed in the golden cage. Clara developed a routine because the alternative was madness. Morning stretches by the window. Breakfast she barely touched. Hours of pacing and planning escapes that would never work. Lunch. More pacing.
Dinner.
Sleep that came in fits and starts, interrupted by dreams of smoke and flames and Mia's voice calling for her. Leo visited every afternoon, always escorted by guards, always clutching new drawings or books he wanted to share. He talked about school, tutors came to the house, and his collection of toy cars and how the chef would make anything he asked for. He never mentioned his mother. On the 4th day, something changed. Clara was picking at lunch when Damien appeared in the doorway. No guards this time. No threatening presence. He looked almost uncertain, which was somehow more unsettling than his usual cold control. Walk with me, he said. It wasn't a request, but it wasn't quite an order either. Clara stood warily. Where? The gardens. You've been inside for days. Leo thinks you need fresh air, he paused. I agree. The gardens were stunning, roses and jasmine, fountains and stone pathways winding through perfectly trimmed hedges. But Clara barely noticed the beauty. She was too focused on the armed men stationed at every corner, the cameras tracking their movement, the walls that seemed to grow higher with every step. They walked in silence for several minutes before Damien spoke. My wife died in a fire. Clara stopped walking. She'd known that, vaguely, from old news reports. But hearing it from him was different. Elena, his voice was carefully neutral. 7 years ago. She was upstairs when it started. I was in my office downstairs, and by the time I realized what was happening, he stared at a white rose, not quite seeing it. The smoke was too thick. The stairs were gone. I stood there while she screamed my name, and I couldn't move. I just froze. Clara's anger wavered. Just slightly.
I'm sorry.
The firefighters pulled her out, but it was too late. Smoke inhalation. She died in the ambulance. Damien's jaw tightened. Leo was only 1 year old. He doesn't remember her. Sometimes I think that's a mercy. Sometimes I think it's the cruelest thing in the world. Why are you telling me this? He finally looked at her, and Clara saw something raw in his eyes. Something that looked almost like shame. Because when I saw you run into those flames, when I saw you carry my son out while the house collapsed behind you, he shook his head slowly. You did what I couldn't. You didn't hesitate. You didn't freeze. You just acted. I'm a nurse, Clara said quietly. It's what we do. No, Damien's voice was firm. Most nurses wouldn't have done that. Most people wouldn't have done that. You could have died, and you didn't even know who Leo was. You had no reason to risk everything. He was a child who needed help. That's all the reason I needed. They resumed walking, the silence between them different now. Less hostile. More complicated. You think I'm a monster, Damien said. It wasn't a question. Clara chose her words carefully. I think you're a man who keeps people prisoner in their own rooms. Whatever else you are doesn't change that. Fair enough, he almost smiled. Almost. For what it's worth, I've confirmed you're not working for my enemies. My people are thorough. Your life is exactly what it appears to be, messy, difficult, and honest. Then let me go home. I can't, he stopped at a fountain, studying the water. The investigation into the fire points to professionals. Mercenaries. Someone paid a lot of money to kill my son, and they're still out there. If they know you can identify anything, a voice, a face, a car, they'll come for you. I can't identify anything, Clara protested. I didn't see anyone. I just saw flames. You don't know what you saw. Sometimes witnesses remember details later, when they're not in shock. Whoever did this won't take that chance, he turned to face her fully. 3 witnesses from other investigations have turned up dead this year, Miss Evans. All of them killed before they could testify. All of them people I couldn't protect because they refused my help. The words landed like stones in her stomach. So, what am I supposed to do? Stay here forever. Just until I find who's responsible. Then you'll have protection, a new identity if needed, resources. I don't want a new identity. Clara's voice rose. I want my life back. I want to tuck my daughter into bed and help with her homework and argue with her about eating vegetables. I want to go to work and complain about hospital coffee and struggle to pay my bills. That's my life, and it's not perfect, but it's mine. And you'll get it back, Damien said, his voice surprisingly gentle. I promise you that. But right now, staying alive has to be your priority. Clara laughed bitterly. You're asking me to trust you. The man who locked me in a room and had me investigated. The man who... She gestured helplessly at the armed guards, the cameras, the walls. All of this. I know, Damien looked away. Trust isn't my strong suit.
Control is.
Order. Knowing exactly where everyone is, and what they're doing. It's how I've kept Leo safe for 7 years. It's how I've survived in a world where people smile at you over dinner and plot your murder over dessert. That sounds exhausting. It is, he said it so simply, so honestly, that Clara found herself believing him. But watching someone charge into flames to save my son, that changed something. Made me remember there are people who still act without calculations or ulterior motives. People like you. Clara studied him, this powerful, dangerous man who'd built walls around himself and his son so high that even kindness looked like a threat. Your wife, she said softly. You blame yourself. Every day, the words came out raw. I should have moved faster. Should have been braver. Should have saved her. And now you see Leo almost die the same way, understanding clicked into place. That's why you're so paranoid. It's not just about enemies. It's about history repeating itself. Damien didn't answer, but he didn't need to. The truth was written in every rigid line of his body. For the first time since waking in this place, Clara saw him not as her captor, but as a man haunted by the same flames that had marked her hands. I'm not afraid of you, she said. He looked at her sharply. You should be. Maybe. But I'm not. Clara met his gaze steadily. And I think that terrifies you more than anything. The next morning, Leo knocked on Clara's door instead of being escorted in by guards. Papa says I can visit whenever I want now, he announced proudly, clutching a book with a dragon on the cover. Will you read to me? My tutor says I should practice, but it's more fun when someone helps. Clara glanced at the guards still stationed outside her door, a heavy-set man named Marco who nodded politely but said nothing. Some freedom. But Leo's hopeful face was impossible to resist. Of course, sweetheart.
Come sit.
They settled on the window seat, and Leo curled against her side like he'd done it 1,000 times. The book was about a dragon who was afraid of his own fire, and Clara found herself wondering if Damien had chosen it deliberately. Halfway through the 2nd chapter, Leo touched the bandages on her hands. Do they hurt? A little, but they're healing. Mine too, he showed her his arms, where the burns were fading to pink. Dr. Russo says we'll both have scars. We can match. Battle scars, Clara said, making her voice light. We're pretty tough, huh? The toughest, Leo grinned, then grew serious. Clara, why don't you have a husband? The question caught her off guard. I did once. But sometimes grown-ups decide they're better as friends than married. Oh, Leo processed this. Papa doesn't have a wife anymore either. Mama died when I was little. I know, honey.
I'm sorry.
I don't really remember her. Just pictures. He traced the dragon on the book cover. Papa gets sad sometimes, especially at night. I hear him walking in the hallway when he thinks I'm asleep. Clara's chest tightened. She thought of Damien's confession by the fountain, the guilt he carried like a second skin. Your papa loves you very much, she said quietly. Sometimes when people love someone a lot and they lose someone else they loved, they get extra worried about keeping the people they have left safe. Is that why we have so many guards? Yes. Is that why you can't leave? Clara hesitated. Yes. Leo leaned closer. I don't want you to leave anyway. It's nicer when you're here. Papa smiles more. Before Clara could respond, Damien's voice came from the doorway. Leo, let Clara rest. She needs to change those bandages. But his tone was softer than before, and when Leo hugged Clara goodbye, Damien didn't rush him. The days began to blur together, but in a different way now. Clara started taking her meals in the main dining room instead of her bedroom. Leo insisted, and Damien didn't object. The first dinner was awkward, crystal and china and more forks than any human needed, with Damien at one end of the long table and Clara at the other like strangers at a business meeting. This is stupid, Leo declared. We're too far apart to talk. Damien raised an eyebrow. This is how formal dining works. Well, it's boring. Leo grabbed his plate and marched to sit next to Clara.
There.
Much better. Clara hid her smile behind her napkin as Damien stared at his son, clearly torn between enforcing etiquette and something else. Finally, he picked up his own plate and moved closer. Thank you, Leo said smugly. You're welcome, you little negotiator, Damien muttered, but Clara caught the ghost of amusement in his eyes. Dinner became easier after that. Leo chattered about his day. His tutor was teaching him about ancient Rome. The chef had let him help make pasta. He'd beaten his previous record on the racing game in the den. Damien listened with the focused attention of someone who'd learned to cherish these ordinary moments. Clara found herself watching them, this tight unit of two, and something in her chest ached. Mia should be here, laughing over dinner, stealing bites from Clara's plate, telling terrible knock-knock jokes. You're thinking about your daughter, Damien said, reading her expression with uncomfortable accuracy. Always, Clara admitted. You can call her again tonight, after dinner. It became a ritual. Every evening, 10 minutes on the phone while Damien stood just far enough away to give the illusion of privacy. Mia would tell her about school, about the new friend she'd made, about how Mrs. Chin let her stay up an extra 30 minutes because she'd eaten all her vegetables. When are you coming home, Mommy? Soon, Clara would promise, hating the lie. Soon. One afternoon, Clara found Leo in the library, struggling with math homework. His tutor had left him worksheets on fractions, and he was close to tears. I hate math, he declared. It's impossible. Nothing's impossible, Clara said, sitting beside him. You just need a different way to think about it. Here, if you had a pizza cut into 8 slices and you ate 3, what fraction of the pizza did you eat? 3 slices. 3 out of 8 total slices. That's 3/8.
See.
Leo's eyes lit up.
Oh.
That makes sense. They worked through the problems together, turning fractions into pizzas and cookies and toy cars, until Leo was solving them easily. He threw his arms around Clara's neck. You're a better teacher than Mr. Peterson. Don't let him hear you say that, Clara laughed. Don't let who hear what? Damien stood in the doorway, and Clara realized he'd been watching them. Something in his expression was unguarded, almost vulnerable. Clara helped me with math. Leo showed him the completed worksheet. I get it now. I see that. Damien's eyes met Clara's over his son's head. Thank you. It's nothing. It's not nothing. His voice was quiet but firm. You didn't have to do that. Later that evening, after Leo was in bed, Clara found Damien on the terrace overlooking the gardens. She'd been given more freedom now, allowed to roam the house, though the main gates remained firmly locked. He's a good kid, she said, joining him at the railing.
He is.
Despite everything, Damien handed her a glass of wine. You're good with him. I'm a mom. It comes with the territory. Not all mothers are like you, he said it matter-of-factly, and Clara wondered what his own mother had been like. Leo's happy when you're around. I haven't seen him this relaxed since before the fire? Since before his mother died. Damien took a long drink. You make this house feel different. Less like a fortress. More like a home. Clara didn't know what to say to that. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the gardens in shades of amber and rose. Rico thinks I'm getting soft, Damien said suddenly.
Rico?
My consigliera. My right hand. He's been warning me that the men are noticing changes. Damien's smile was slight but genuine. I told him maybe they should notice. Maybe soft isn't the worst thing to be. Clara turned to look at him, this complicated man who'd imprisoned her and protected her in the same breath. That might be the sanest thing I've heard you say. He laughed, actually laughed, and the sound transformed his entire face. For just a moment, he looked younger, lighter, like a man who remembered joy. Don't get used to it, he said. Sanity isn't really my style. But as Clara headed back inside, she caught him smiling at his wine glass, and she realized something had shifted between them. Something neither of them had planned, and both of them were starting to depend on. The news broke on a Tuesday morning. Clara was helping Leo build a fort out of couch cushions in the living room when Marco rushed in, his expression tight. Boss needs to see you.
Now.
The tone sent ice through Clara's veins. What's wrong? Just come with me. Damien's office was all dark wood and leather, filled with men in expensive suits looking at a tablet screen. The air crackled with tension. Rico, a lean man with silver hair and sharp eyes, stood beside Damien's desk, his face grim. Miss Evans, Rico said, his accent thicker than Damien's. We have a problem. Damien turned the tablet toward her. A news website glowed on the screen, and Clara's heart stopped. Arson suspect identified. Nurse seen fleeing Moretti estate fire. There was a photo, grainy security footage of someone in medical scrubs running from a building. The timestamp showed moments before Clara had arrived at the burning mansion. The article detailed how police had received an anonymous tip about a woman in hospital attire seen leaving the scene. They were asking the public's help in identifying her. That's not me, Clara whispered. I was driving home from work. I saw the fire and went in to help. Keep reading, Damien said, his voice dangerously quiet. Clara scrolled down. Her stomach turned to lead. Sources report that investigators found a hospital identification badge near the origin point of the fire. The badge belongs to Clara Evans, a nurse at St. Michael's Hospital. Evans' current whereabouts are unknown. Police are treating her as a person of interest in the arson investigation that nearly claimed the life of 8-year-old Leo Moretti. No, the word came out as a gasp. No, that's impossible. I had my badge. It was on my scrubs when She touched her chest, but she was wearing different clothes now. Her scrubs had been taken away, cleaned or disposed of. Where's my badge? I need my badge. We found it in the fire debris, Rico said flatly. Right where the arsonist set the accelerant. Your badge was used to bypass the security system that night. The electronic lock on the service entrance was accessed with your credentials at 11:47 p.m. But I didn't clock out of the hospital until midnight. I was still at work. Clara's voice rose. Check the hospital records. Check the cameras. I was finishing paperwork in the ER. There are witnesses. We're checking everything, Damien said, but his eyes had gone cold again. That distance she'd seen the first day was back, and it terrified her more than any threat. But someone clearly wants the police to think you're involved. Or maybe she is involved, Rico said, crossing his arms. Convenient timing. Convenient rescue. Now she's inside your home, boss, with full access to Leo. Shut up, Rico, Damien snapped, but Clara could see the doubt creeping into his expression. You can't actually believe this, Clara said, her voice shaking. You investigated me. You said yourself I'm not working for anyone. This is a setup. Then who set you up?
Rico demanded. And why?
A single mother with no connections to our world, no gambling debts, no criminal record. Why would anyone frame you specifically? Clara had no answer. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of something senseless. Maybe they chose someone random. Someone who worked at the hospital near the estate. Someone who... There's more, Damien interrupted. He pulled up another screen. A bank statement. This morning, $50,000 was deposited into your checking account. The transfer came from an offshore account we can't trace. The room tilted. What? That's not, I didn't. The police have this information too, Rico said. They're building a case. Single mother, drowning in debt, suddenly gets a massive cash payment and a child nearly dies. How do you think that looks? Like I'm being framed, Clara shouted. How can you not see that? Someone is setting me up to... She stopped, the realization hitting her like a punch. To make you doubt me. To make you think I'm a threat. Why would they do that? Damien asked, but there was something in his voice. A crack in the doubt. Because I'm getting close to Leo. Because Clara gestured helplessly between them. We were starting to trust each other. Maybe someone wants to destroy that. Maybe someone wants you paranoid and isolated, so focused on enemies inside your home that you can't see the real threat. Silence fell. The men exchanged glances. Finally, Rico spoke. Or maybe you're exactly as good an actress as we feared. Get out, Damien said quietly. Clara blinked. What? Everyone out. I need to think. The men filed out, Rico shooting Clara a suspicious glare. She stood frozen, watching Damien's back as he stared out the window at his fortified paradise. Damien, she said softly. Please. You know me. These past weeks. I don't know you, he didn't turn around. I thought I was starting to, but maybe that's exactly what someone wanted. Maybe Rico's right. Maybe I've gone soft. Don't do this, Clara moved closer, desperate. Don't let them win. Whoever planted that evidence, whoever set this up, they want you to push me away. They want you alone and afraid, and... You don't understand what it's like, Damien interrupted, his voice rough. To second-guess every smile, every kindness, every person who gets close. I've survived this long by trusting no one inch. Except that's not surviving, Clara said. That's just existing. And it's exactly what killed your wife. Not the fire, the fear. You froze because you'd trained yourself not to trust your instincts, not to act without calculating every angle. You've taught yourself that everyone is a threat. He finally turned to face her, and she saw the war raging behind his eyes. Want versus fear. Hope versus survival. Did they pay you? He asked, and the question came out almost pleading, like he wanted her to confess just so he could stop fighting himself. Did someone offer you money to play hero, to get close to my son, to make me lower my guard? Clara felt something break inside her chest. After everything, the conversations, the dinners, the moments of genuine connection, he still couldn't take that final leap of faith. You'd rather believe a lie than the truth staring at you, she said, echoing his own words back to him. I ran into fire for a child I didn't know. I've spent weeks trapped here, away from my daughter, because you asked me to trust that you'd keep me safe. And now, when someone tries to destroy me, you choose to believe them instead. I don't know what to believe, Damien admitted. Yes, you do, Clara's voice broke. You just don't have the courage to believe it. She walked to the door, her bandaged hands trembling. I want to leave. Right now. I'd rather take my chances with whoever's out there than stay in a cage with someone who'll never trust me. Clara. Let me go, Damien. Please. Just let me go. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, so quietly she almost missed it. Fine. The word felt like a door slamming shut. Clara was escorted to her room to collect her things, except she had no things. Everything she'd arrived in was gone. Everything she'd worn these past weeks belonged to Damien. She changed into the simplest outfit she could find, her movements mechanical. The bandages on her hands caught on the fabric, a reminder of the night that had destroyed her life. A knock on the door. Marco entered, holding a manila envelope. "From the boss," he said, his expression unreadable. "Cash, a new phone, and a card for a hotel downtown. 3 nights paid."
He says.
He says to be careful. Clara took the envelope without a word. Blood money. Guilt money. She wanted to throw it in his face, but she had $17 in a checking account that now held $50,000 she'd never asked for and couldn't touch without looking guilty. She tucked the envelope in her pocket. The walk to the front gate felt eternal. Guards watched her pass, their faces impassive. The mansion that had felt like a prison now felt like something else, something she was losing before she'd ever really had it. Leo was waiting at the bottom of the grand staircase. "You're leaving?" His voice was small, confused. "But Papa said you were staying to keep safe," he said. "Things changed, sweetheart." Clara knelt, ignoring the pain in her shoulder, and pulled him into a hug. "You be good, okay? Keep practicing your math. Keep reading those dragon books." "But when will you come back?" Clara's throat closed. "I don't know." "Is it because of the news?" "Papa was watching it this morning. He got really angry." Leo clutched her shirt. "They said bad things about you, but they're lying, right? You saved me. You wouldn't hurt anyone." "No, honey." "I wouldn't." She pulled back to look at his face, memorizing it. "You remember that, okay? No matter what anyone says." "Leo, let her go." Damien's voice came from the top of the stairs. He descended slowly, his face an impassive mask. "Say goodbye." "I don't want to say goodbye." Leo's eyes filled with tears. "Tell her to stay, Papa. Tell her." "It's not that simple." "Yes, it is." Leo spun to face his father, his small body shaking with rage. "You always say you keep me safe, but you're making Clara leave. She's the only one who came into the fire. She's the only one who wasn't scared." The words hit Damien like a physical blow. Clara saw him flinch, saw the old guilt rise like a ghost. "Leo, that's enough," he said quietly. "It's not enough. Nothing's ever enough." Leo ran up the stairs past his father and disappeared, his sobs echoing through the mansion. Damien and Clara stood in the silence he left behind. "He'll get over it," Damien said, but he sounded hollow. "Will he?" Clara started toward the door. "Or will he just learn to be like you? Trusting no one, locked away, too scared to believe in anything good. That's not fair." "Fair." Clara spun back, anger finally breaking through her hurt. "You want to talk about fair? I save your son's life and lose everything. My freedom, my reputation, my daughter. Someone frames me for attempted murder and you immediately assume I'm guilty. Where's the fairness in that? I have to protect my son. From what? From someone who cares about him? From someone who reads him stories and helps with homework and makes him laugh." Her voice cracked. "You're so busy protecting him from imaginary threats that you can't see the real damage you're doing. You're teaching him that love is dangerous, that trust is weakness, that everyone will eventually betray you. Because they will." Damien's control finally shattered. Everyone leaves. Everyone dies or lies or waits for the perfect moment to stab you in the back. That's the world we live in. "No, that's the world you live in," Clara said. "And you're dragging that little boy down into it with you. Better paranoid and alive than trusting and dead." "Really? Because from where I'm standing, you're already dead. You're just a ghost walking around a fortress, too scared to feel anything real." Clara moved closer, her voice dropping. "Your wife didn't die because you froze, Damien. She died because of a fire. A terrible, random tragedy. But you've been punishing yourself ever since, and now you're punishing everyone who gets close to you. You don't know what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about. I know what it's like to be so scared of losing someone that you can't enjoy having them." Clara thought of Mia, of the sleepless nights checking that she was still breathing, of the panic every time her phone rang at school. "But I choose to love her anyway. I choose to trust her teachers, her doctors, her babysitter. Because the alternative, living in constant fear, that's not living at all." Damien stared at her, something breaking behind his eyes. I thought you were different, Clara continued, softer now. I thought maybe underneath all this. She gestured at the mansion, the guards, the cameras. There was still a man who could take a risk, who could choose hope over fear. But I was wrong. What if you're the one who's wrong? Damien's voice was barely a whisper. What if trusting you gets my son killed? Then at least you tried. Clara's eyes burned with unshed tears. At least you believed in something. At least you were brave enough to take that chance. She turned toward the door, but his words stopped her. I can't lose him, Clara. I can't survive it again. Clara looked back one last time. Damien stood in the middle of his beautiful, empty mansion, surrounded by protection that couldn't keep him safe from himself. You're not going to lose him to a fire or an enemy, she said quietly. You're going to lose him by pushing away everyone who could teach him how to be human. And that will be the saddest thing of all. The front door opened. Marco stood waiting by a black car. Clara walked out into the October sunshine, free for the first time in weeks. Free and completely alone. The gate closed behind her with a metallic clang that sounded like finality. She didn't look back. She couldn't. If she looked back, she might see Damien watching from the window. She might see the way his hand pressed against the glass. She might see him make the choice he was too afraid to make. But she didn't look back. Some bridges you had to let burn. The hotel room was sterile and anonymous. Beige walls, scratchy sheets, a window overlooking a parking lot. Clara sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the cash Damien had given her. $2,000 in crisp hundreds. Enough to survive for a few weeks. Not enough to fix what was broken. She called Mrs. Chen first. Clara. Thank God. The news, they're saying terrible things. I know. I need to see Mia. Can you bring her too? Clara paused. Could she risk it? If the police were looking for her, if someone was really trying to frame her, bringing Mia here might put her daughter in danger. Actually, is she okay staying with you a few more days? Just until this gets sorted out. Of course, but Clara, what's happening? Did you really?
No.
I didn't do anything wrong. But someone wants people to think I did. Clara's voice hardened. And I'm going to find out who. After hanging up, she opened the new phone Damien had provided. It was a basic model, probably untraceable. She pulled up the news article again, studying every detail. The timestamp on the security footage, 11:47 p.m. She'd been at the hospital until midnight. She was certain of it. The ER had been chaos that night. A car accident victim, a kid with a broken arm, an elderly woman having a heart attack. She'd stayed late finishing paperwork. There had to be proof. Clara grabbed the hotel notepad and started making notes. Hospital security footage. Her time card. Coworkers who'd seen her. She needed evidence, but going back to St. Michael's meant risking arrest. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. Clara stared at it, her heart racing. Finally, she answered. Hello. Miss Evans. Rico's voice was cold. Don't hang up. Why would you call me? Because the boss is making a mistake, and I'm the one who has to clean it up, Rico sighed. I didn't believe you. I still don't, entirely. But I believe in protecting what's mine, and right now, you're a loose end that could destroy this family. I'm not trying to destroy anyone. I know. That's the problem. Rico's tone shifted slightly. I've been in this business 30 years, Miss Evans. I can spot a liar at 50 paces. And you? You're either the world's greatest actress, or you're exactly what you appear to be, an unlucky woman in the wrong place at the wrong time. Clara gripped the phone tighter. Then help me prove it. I'm trying. I've been going through surveillance footage from the estate. 3 vehicles visited the property the day of the fire, all registered to shell companies. One of them belongs to Luciano Ferro. Who's that? Someone who used to be an ally. Someone who's been making moves to take over territory the boss controls. Rico paused. Someone who benefits greatly if Damien Moretti appears weak, paranoid, and distracted. Clara's mind raced. The fire was meant to kill Leo, but when it failed, someone pivoted. They framed me to drive a wedge between Damien and anyone he might trust. Smart woman Rico almost sounded impressed. Pharaoh's men were at the estate 6 hours before the fire. Security footage shows one of them near the service entrance, right where your badge was supposedly used. They must have stolen it somehow. From the hospital. Or, Clara froze.
Wait.
3 weeks ago, someone broke into my locker at work. I reported it, but nothing was missing. At least, I thought nothing was missing. Did you check if your badge was taken and returned? No, Clara felt sick. I used it every day. I would have noticed if it was gone for more than a few hours. Long enough to clone it, Rico said. These aren't amateurs, Miss Evans. They planned this carefully. Why are you telling me this? Rico was quiet for a moment. Because I've watched Damien Moretti survive hell for 7 years. I've seen him build walls so high even I can't reach him sometimes. And then you showed up and did something I thought was impossible. You made him remember what it's like to be human. Clara's throat tightened. He doesn't believe that anymore.
He will.
Once I give him proof, Rico's voice turned businesslike. I found the guard who let Pharaoh's men in. He's been on Pharaoh's payroll for 6 months. Right now, he's in my basement, and he's very eager to talk. Clara didn't want to think about what that meant. What did he say? That Pharaoh paid him to disable the fire alarms and plant accelerant in strategic locations. That Pharaoh wanted to send a message, hurt Damien where it matters most. That you were chosen specifically because you're a single mother with debts. Easy to frame. Easy to discredit. Rico's anger bled through his controlled tone. They gambled that the boss would rather believe you betrayed him than trust his own judgment. And they were almost right. Almost. The boss may be paranoid, Miss Evans, but he's not stupid. He's in his office right now, tearing apart every piece of evidence, looking for holes in the story. Rico paused. He wants to believe you. He's just terrified of being wrong. Clara closed her eyes. So what now? Now I finished the investigation. I have men tracking the offshore account that deposited money in your name. It'll lead back to Pharaoh, I guarantee it. I have the guard's confession on tape. And I have security footage showing Pharaoh's men at the estate with timestamps that match your hospital shift. That's enough to clear me? It's enough to prove you were framed. Whether it's enough to convince a man who's spent 7 years trusting no one.
Rico exhaled.
That's a different question. I don't need him to trust me, Clara said, surprised by the truth of it. I just need my name cleared so I can go home to my daughter. You're lying. Clara opened her mouth to protest, but Rico cut her off. You care about him.
About Leo.
I saw it these past weeks. You weren't acting. Nobody's that good. His voice softened, just barely. And for what it's worth, they care about you too. Leo hasn't stopped crying since you left. And the boss. I've never seen him look so lost. Clara's resolve wavered. That's not my problem anymore. Isn't it? Rico asked. You told him he was too scared to take a risk. But what about you, Miss Evans? Are you brave enough to give him a second chance? The line went dead. Clara sat in the silence of her hotel room, Rico's question echoing in her mind. She thought of Damien's face when he'd asked if she'd been paid to betray him. The fear and hope warring in his eyes. The way he'd looked when he said fine, knowing he was watching her walk away. She thought of Leo's tears, his small arms around her neck, his drawing of 3 stick figures. And she thought of herself, teaching Mia to be brave, to trust, to love without guarantees. Outside, the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of fire and gold. Clara stood and grabbed her jacket. She had work to do. Damien Moretti hadn't slept in 3 days. His office was littered with documents, surveillance footage frozen on multiple screens, coffee cups forming rings on priceless furniture. Rico stood by the window, arms crossed, watching his boss spiral. The confession checks out, Rico said for the 3rd time. Pharaoh orchestrated everything. The guard's testimony, the footage, the timing, it all points to him. It could be another setup. Damien rubbed his eyes. Pharaoh knows we'd investigate. What if this is exactly what he wants us to find? then he's a genius, and we're all idiots. Rico's patience was wearing thin. Or maybe, just maybe, the simpler answer is the right one. Clara Evans is innocent. You made a mistake. And now you need to fix it. Damien stared at the frozen image on his screen, Clara running into the burning mansion, her face set with determination. He'd watched this footage 100 times, looking for hesitation, calculation, any sign of deception. There was none. There never had been. Leo won't eat, Rico continued quietly. He stays in his room, refuses his tutor. He asked me yesterday if you were going to send him away too. The words hit like a bullet. What? He thinks everyone leaves eventually. His mother. Now Clara. He's waiting to see who's next. Rico moved closer. You wanted to protect him, boss. But you're breaking his heart. Damien's hands clenched into fists. Set up a meeting with Pharaoh. What? You heard me.
Today. Now.
His office at the docks. Damien stood, his decision made. Tell him I want to discuss a truce. Rico's eyes widened. You're walking into his territory to what exactly? Kill him? That starts a war we're not ready for. I'm not going to kill him. Damien's smile was cold and sharp. I'm going to end him, without firing a single shot.
How?
Damien pulled a folder from his desk drawer. He'd been compiling it for months. Suspicious transactions, offshore accounts, connections to politicians and police. Pharaoh had been sloppy, arrogant, thinking himself untouchable. The same way he tried to end me, Damien said. By making him destroy himself. Pharaoh's waterfront office was all chrome and glass, modern luxury with a view of the harbor. Guards flanked the entrance, but they let Damien pass. Pharaoh was too confident to fear a meeting in his own territory. Luciano Pharaoh sat behind his desk like a king on a throne. Mid-50s, silver hair slicked back, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Damien. What an unexpected pleasure. Pharaoh gestured to a chair. I heard about your troubles. Terrible business, that fire. And to think, the woman who saved your boy turned out to be the one who tried to kill him. The irony. Damien remained standing. Cut the act, Luciano. We both know Clara Evans had nothing to do with that fire. Do we? Pharaoh's smile widened. The evidence seems quite compelling. Hospital badge at the scene, money in her account, motive and opportunity. Poor woman. I hear the police are building quite a case. They were. Until my people found your guard. The one who confessed to everything. Pharaoh's smile didn't falter, but something flickered in his eyes. Confessions obtained under duress are inadmissible, Damien. You know that. Good thing I don't need a courtroom. Damien placed the folder on Pharaoh's desk. I need headlines. Pharaoh opened the folder, and for the first time, his composure cracked. Page after page of transactions, photographs, recorded conversations. Evidence of tax fraud, money laundering, bribes to city officials. Years of careful corruption laid bare. You've gone soft, Damien, Pharaoh said, but his voice had lost its confidence. That nurse made you forget who you are. Made you forget the rules of this game. No, Damien leaned forward, his voice deadly quiet. She reminded me who I used to be. Before the fear. Before the paranoia. Before I let people like you convince me that the only way to survive is to trust no 1 inch. Trust gets you killed. Living like this kills you slower, Damien interrupted. A little more each day, until you're nothing but a ghost in an expensive suit, surrounded by people who'd sell you out for the right price. Like your guard did. Like your accountant will when the FBI comes knocking. Pharaoh's jaw tightened. You wouldn't dare. I already did. Damien checked his watch. Anonymous tip went to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division 20 minutes ago. They're probably getting their war right now. And, before you think about running, I've frozen your offshore accounts. All of them. That's impossible. I have better hackers than you have security, Damien straightened. Your assets are locked. Your allies are getting subpoenas. And the media, well, they love a good corruption story. Especially one involving arson and attempted murder of a child. Pharaoh stood abruptly, his chair scraping back. You think you can destroy me with paperwork? I built this empire with blood. And I'm taking it apart with truth, Damien said. Because you wanted to see who I've become? Look closely, Luciano. I'm a man who doesn't need a gun anymore. A man who learned that real power isn't making people fear you, it's making them irrelevant. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Pharaoh's face went white. You brought them here? To my office. I told you. I'm done playing by the old rules. Damien walked to the door, then paused. You tried to kill my son to prove I was weak. You framed an innocent woman to make me doubt myself. You thought breaking me would be easy. I should have killed you when I had the chance, Pharaoh snarled. You never had a chance, Damien's voice was ice. Because I'm not the man I was 7 years ago, frozen and afraid. I'm not the man I was 3 weeks ago, so paranoid I couldn't see truth when it saved my son's life. I'm someone new, someone better, someone soft, Pharaoh spat. No, Damien smiled, and it was genuine. Someone who finally learned the difference between strength and cruelty. Someone who figured out that the biggest risk isn't trusting the wrong person, it's never trusting anyone at all. The siren stopped outside.
Car doors slammed.
Footsteps thundered up the stairs. The fire's out, Luciano, Damien said quietly. And you're the one who's burning. He walked out as federal agents poured in, their voices sharp with authority. Pharaoh's shouts followed him down the hallway, but Damien didn't look back. Rico waited by the car, eyebrows raised. Well? It's done. Damien slid into the back seat, feeling lighter than he had in years. Get me everything we have on Clara Evans, hospital records, witness statements, the offshore account trail. I want it airtight. Already compiled, Rico handed him another folder. Where to, boss? Damien thought of Clara in some anonymous hotel room, alone and afraid, believing no one would fight for her. He thought of her words, "You'd rather believe a lie than the truth staring at you." She'd been right. But maybe it wasn't too late to prove she was also wrong about him being too afraid to choose hope. Her hotel, Damien said. And Rico? This time I'm going alone. You sure that's wise? Damien looked at the folder in his hands, evidence of Clara's innocence, proof that she'd been telling the truth all along, proof that he'd been given a gift and nearly thrown it away. Probably not, he admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. Clara was packing her few belongings when the knock came. She froze, her heart hammering. Police? Pharaoh's men? She'd been careful, hadn't used her credit cards, hadn't contacted anyone except Mrs. Chen. Clara, Damien's voice, muffled through the door. Please. I know you're in there. She should ignore him, should tell him to leave, should protect what little remained of her dignity and heart. Instead, she opened the door. Damien stood in the hallway alone. No guards, no Rico, no weapons visible. He looked terrible. His suit was rumpled, his tie loosened, dark circles under his eyes. He looked like a man who'd been to hell and barely made it back. How did you find me? Clara asked. The phone I gave you has a tracker. At her expression, he raised his hands. I know. Old habits. But right now, I'm grateful for them, because we need to talk. I don't think we have anything to say. Pharaoh confessed. The words tumbled out. Not to me directly, but his entire operation is falling apart. The FBI raided his office an hour ago. They have everything, the arson, the frame job, the money trail. All of it. Clara's knees went weak. She gripped the doorframe. What? You were right. About everything, Damien's voice cracked. Someone set you up to make me doubt you. To make me push away the one person who he stopped, struggling with words. The one person who showed me what I'd forgotten how to be. Damien.
Please.
Let me finish. He pulled out a folder. This is every piece of evidence clearing your name. Hospital security footage showing you at work when your badge was used at my estate. Testimony from the guard Pharaoh bribed. Bank records proving the offshore account belongs to one of his shell companies. Statements from your coworkers confirming your shift that night. Clara took the folder with shaking hands, hardly daring to believe it. Page after page of documentation, official letterheads, timestamps, proof. Proof she was innocent. Proof she could go home. The police have already been notified, Damien continued. All charges will be dropped. Your name will be cleared publicly. The money in your account will be traced back to Pharaoh as evidence. You're free, Clara. Completely free. She should feel relief.
Joy. Victory.
Instead, she felt hollowed out, exhausted. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me. Damien's face twisted with something like pain. I should have believed you from the start. I should have trusted my instincts instead of my fear. You told me I'd rather believe a lie than the truth, and you were right.
I'm sorry, Clara.
I'm so damn sorry. Clara looked at him, really looked at him. This powerful man who'd had her investigated, imprisoned, and ultimately betrayed. This complicated man who'd also protected her, shared his grief, and let his son love her. This broken man who was trying, finally, to choose hope over fear. You didn't kill him, she said softly. Damien blinked. What?
Ferro.
You could have killed him. That's what the old you would have done. Eliminate the threat, send a message. But you didn't. No, Damien's smile was slight but real. I gave him to the law. Let him rot in a cell, bankrupt and powerless. It felt
cleaner.
Better. The fire's out, Clara said, echoing his words to Pharaoh. Yeah, he met her eyes. It is. They stood in the doorway, the folder of evidence between them like a bridge or a wall. Clara couldn't tell which. What happens now? She asked. Now you go home to your daughter. You go back to your life. You get to be free of all this. He gestured vaguely. Chaos. Free of me. Is that what you want? Damien looked away. What I want doesn't matter. You deserve better than a man who locked you up and doubted you. You deserve someone who trusts easily, who doesn't see threats in every shadow, who can give you a normal life. I'm a single mother working double shifts to pay rent, Clara said. I drive a car that barely runs and eat ramen 3 nights a week. Normal is overrated. Clara. You made a mistake, she interrupted. A big one. You let fear control you, and you hurt me. But you also figured it out. You investigated. You found the truth. And you came here alone. To tell me. She stepped closer. That took courage. It took too long, Damien said bitterly. I wasted days doubting you when I should have been. Being human, Clara finished. Making mistakes. Learning. Growing. She touched his arm gently. You're not the man you were 7 years ago, frozen by fear. You're not even the man you were 3 weeks ago, too paranoid to trust. You're becoming someone new. Someone better. Someone who hurt you. Someone who's trying to make it right. Clara's voice softened. That matters, Damien. Maybe more than anything else. He finally looked at her, and she saw hope warring with disbelief in his eyes. You're saying you forgive me? I'm saying I understand you, Clara smiled sadly. I know what it's like to be so scared of losing someone that you can't let anyone in. I know what it's like to build walls because it feels safer than risking your heart. And I know what it's like to realize those walls are just another kind of prison. Damien reached for her hand, then stopped uncertain. Clara took his hand instead, lacing her bandaged fingers through his. I can't promise I won't be scared, he said quietly. I can't promise I won't sometimes doubt or worry or try to control things I can't control. I'm not asking for perfect, Clara said. I'm asking for honest. For trying. For being brave enough to keep choosing hope even when fear makes more sense. I don't deserve you. Probably not, Clara's smile widened. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point is figuring out if we're brave enough to deserve each other. Damien pulled her closer, his forehead resting against hers. For the record, you're the bravest person I've ever met. For the record, you're getting there. He laughed, that same genuine sound she'd heard on the terrace, the sound of a man remembering joy. Then he sobered. Leo's been asking for you. Every day. Every hour, Damien's voice roughened. He thinks you left because of him. Clara's heart clenched. I would never. I know. But he's 8. He doesn't understand why people leave, only that they do. Damien met her eyes. Would you come back? Not to the house, not to the cage. Just come see him? Let him know you're okay? Of course, Clara didn't hesitate. When?
Now.
Damien asked hopefully. I can drive you. Or I can send Rico if you'd rather.
You can drive me, Clara said.
But I need to stop somewhere first. Where? Clara smiled. To get my daughter. If I'm going to see Leo, Mia's coming with me. It's time they met. 6 months later. Clara pulled her new used car, a reliable Toyota that didn't flash warning lights, into the parking lot of the Elena Foundation. The building gleamed in the morning sun, all glass and hope, with a playground visible through the windows where children laughed and played. Children with scars like hers, like Leo's. Mommy, can I go on the swings? Mia bounced in her seat, her inhaler tucked safely in Clara's purse. The new insurance plan Damien had helped her secure, legitimate, paid through a health cooperative he'd established, meant Mia's medication was finally affordable. After I check in with the morning staff, Clara promised. Go find Leo. He's probably already here. Mia darted off, her backpack bouncing. She and Leo had become inseparable over the past months, partners in crime, building pillow forts at the estate on weekends, teaching each other playground games, arguing over whose turn it was to pick the movie. Clara had worried, at first, about the blending of their worlds, about whether Mia would be safe in Damien's complicated life, whether Leo would resent sharing his father's attention. But children, she'd learned, were wiser than adults. They simply loved without calculation, trusted without conditions, and made room in their hearts for whoever needed space. Morning, boss. Nurse Patricia grinned as Clara entered the clinic. Dr. Russo wants to see you about the new wing construction. And there's a reporter from the Times waiting in your office, something about the Foundation's 6-month anniversary. Clara had learned to handle reporters with the same calm efficiency she handled emergency rooms. The Elena Foundation had become news, a pediatric burn center funded entirely through legitimate business ventures, offering free care to families who couldn't afford it. Damien had restructured his holdings, divesting from questionable enterprises, focusing on real estate and investments that could stand public scrutiny. Going legit is expensive, Rico had muttered during one budget meeting. Going legit is freedom, Damien had replied. Clara found the reporter, a young woman with a kind face, in the office that still didn't feel quite like hers. Medical degree framed on the wall, completed through a scholarship Damien insisted had nothing to do with him, photos of Leo and Mia on the desk, a view of the playground where healing happened. The interview was standard questions. What inspired the foundation? How did it feel to see it thriving? What were her future goals? Clara answered honestly. The foundation was built on the ashes of tragedy. Elena's death, Leo's near-death, her own scars from running into flames. But it transformed that pain into purpose. Every child treated here, every family given hope, was proof that mercy could rebuild what violence destroyed. And Mr. Moretti? The reporter asked carefully. There are rumors about your relationship. Mr. Moretti is a dedicated father and philanthropist, Clara said with practiced diplomacy. His support of this foundation has changed countless lives. The reporter smiled knowingly, but didn't push. Everyone speculated about Clara Evans and Damien Moretti, the nurse and the reformed crime boss, the fairy tale that didn't quite fit any normal narrative. Let them speculate. The truth was more complicated and more beautiful than any headline could capture. After the interview, Clara found Dr. Russo reviewing blueprints for the expansion. The new wing would double their capacity, add physical therapy facilities, create space for art therapy and counseling. We're going to need more staff, Dr. Russo said, pointing at the designs. At least 5 more nurses, 2 more doctors, 3 therapists. Then we'll find them. Clara studied the plans, seeing not just lines on paper, but futures being rebuilt. When does construction start? Next month. The permits finally cleared, Dr. Russo smiled. When Damien first approached me about this project, I thought he was crazy. A mafia boss starting a children's hospital? But he's full of surprises. Yes, Clara agreed softly. He is. She found Damien outside, pushing Mia on a swing while Leo hung upside down from the monkey bars, making his father nervous. Leo, careful.
I've fine, Papa.
Leo laughed, his scarred arms strong and sure. Watch this. He flipped down, landing on his feet with a triumphant grin.
Mia chird.
Damien exhaled in relief. You're going to give me a heart attack, he told his son. Nah, Clara will save you. She's good at that. Leo ran off with Mia toward the sandbox, their laughter bright as bells. Damien turned to Clara, and she saw the transformation 6 months had brought. The hard edges had softened. The constant tension had eased. He still had guards. Old habits died hard, but they stayed at a respectful distance. He still worried, probably always would, but he'd learned to trust the world wouldn't always end in fire. Rico's been asking when we're expanding to other cities, Damien said, falling into step beside her as they walked the perimeter of the playground. Chicago, Boston, maybe Atlanta. The model works. We have the funding.
Next year, Clara said.
Let's get this wing finished first. Make sure we're doing it right. Always so practical, he took her hand naturally now. The gesture no longer weighted with fear or hesitation. Just simple affection. Have I told you today that you're amazing?
Twice.
But I don't mind hearing it again. He stopped walking, turning to face her. The October sun caught his face, highlighting features that had become dear and familiar. You changed everything, Clara. This foundation, Leo's happiness, my entire life. You ran into fire, and pulled me out too. We pulled each other out, Clara corrected gently. I showed you it was possible to trust. You showed me it was possible to heal. We're partners in this. Partners, Damien repeated, testing the word. Then, quietly. Is that all we are? Clara's heart skipped. They'd been careful these past months, rebuilding friendship, establishing trust, letting Mia and Leo adjust. They'd had dinners together, taken the kids to parks, spent quiet evenings talking while the children played. But they'd never defined what they were becoming. What do you want us to be? She asked. More, he said simply. If you're ready. If you think we're ready. Clara looked at their children playing together in the sand, building castles and knocking them down, and building again. She thought of the foundation rising around them, proof that something beautiful could grow from ashes. She thought of Damien's hand in hers, steady and warm, no longer afraid to hold on. I think we're ready, she said. I think we've been ready for a while. Damien smiled, that genuine, unguarded smile that transformed his entire face. Then let's stop being careful. Let's be brave instead. He kissed her there in the playground, while children laughed and the foundation stood witness. It wasn't a fairy tale kiss, perfect and poetic. It was real and slightly awkward, and absolutely right. When they pulled apart, Leo was cheering and Mia was making exaggerated gagging sounds that couldn't hide her grin. About time, Rico called from his post near the gate, shaking his head. The boss finally learned something. Damien laughed, pulling Clara closer. What's that? That the best things in life are worth the risk. Clara rested her head on his shoulder, watching their children play in the shadow of the foundation that bore his late wife's name. Elena would have approved, she thought. Would have wanted this. Leo happy, Damien healing, good rising from grief. Thank you, Clara whispered. For what? For choosing hope. For being brave enough to try. Damien kissed the top of her head. Thank you for running into fire. For saving more than just my son. Around them, the foundation hummed with life. Nurses checking on patients, families finding hope, children learning they could be more than their scars. And in the center of it all, two broken people who'd found each other in flames and built something everlasting from the ashes. 1 year after the fire. The Elena Foundation's grand opening drew crowds that spilled onto the sidewalk, Families whose children had been treated there, doctors and nurses from across the country, reporters documenting the unlikely story of a mafia boss turned philanthropist. Clara stood backstage in the small auditorium, smoothing down her dress for the 10th time. She wasn't used to speeches, to cameras, to being the face of something this important. She was used to 12-hour shifts and coffee-stained scrubs and the quiet satisfaction of helping one patient at a time. "You're going to be great," Damien appeared beside her, looking uncomfortably formal in his tailored suit. Leo and Mia flanked him, both dressed up and squirming with excitement. "What if I forget what to say?" Clara asked. "Then you'll remember why we built this place," Damien said, "and the words will come." The ceremony was everything Clara had dreamed and nothing she'd expected. The mayor spoke about community investment. Dr. Russo explained the medical innovations they'd implemented. A mother whose daughter had been their first patient talked about hope and healing, her voice breaking with gratitude. Then it was Clara's turn. She walked to the podium, looking out at hundreds of faces. Somewhere in the crowd, Mrs. Chin waved. Her co-workers from St. Michael's sat together, beaming. And in the front row, Damien held Mia's hand while Leo gave her an encouraging thumbs up. "A year ago," Clara began, her voice steadier than she felt, "I was driving home from a double shift, worried about bills and babysitters and whether my car would make it another mile. I wasn't thinking about fate or destiny or any grand purpose. I was just tired." She paused, gathering courage. "Then I saw flames. And I heard a child screaming. And in that moment, I had a choice. Keep driving and let someone else handle it, or do what terrified me and run toward the fire." The audience was silent, listening.
It shows fear.
Not because I was brave, but because I'm a mother and a nurse, and some instincts run deeper than fear. I ran into that burning mansion and pulled out a little boy named Leo. And in doing so, I pulled out something else, a future I never could have imagined. Clara's eyes found Damien's. He was watching her with an expression that made her heart full. This foundation exists because of that choice. Because Leo's father, Damien Moretti, looked at the woman who saved his son and saw more than a witness or a liability. He saw possibility, a chance to transform pain into purpose, tragedy into hope, fear into something revolutionary, trust. A few people in the audience murmured. Everyone knew the story, or versions of it. The fire, the frame-up, the redemption. The Elena Foundation is named for Damien's late wife, who died in a fire 7 years ago. It's built from grief and guilt and the determination to make sure no family has to face what they faced, helplessness in the face of flames, medical bills they can't afford, scars that mark their children as different. Clara gestured to the building around them. Every child treated here receives care regardless of their family's ability to pay. Every family receives counseling, support, resources. Every scar tells a story, and we help write the next chapter, the one about healing. She looked at Leo, who smiled brightly despite the small scars still visible on his arms. We're all marked by fire in some way. Burns on our skin, losses in our hearts, fears that freeze us when we should move. But we don't have to let those flames define us. We can let them refine us instead. The audience applauded, but Clara held up her hand. She wasn't finished. "Before we open the doors, I want to share something I found this morning." She pulled a note card from her pocket. "This was on my desk when I arrived."
No signature.
"Just a message." Clara read aloud. "You ran into fire. I ran out of darkness. DM." Her voice caught on the initials. She looked at Damien, who met her gaze with quiet intensity. "For a long time, I thought running into fire was the brave thing I did that night. But I've learned something over this past year. The real courage wasn't charging into flames to save a stranger's child. The real courage was choosing to stay, to trust someone who'd given me every reason to doubt him, to believe in a future that seemed impossible, to build something lasting from ashes and mercy." Clara folded the note carefully. This foundation is proof that even in our darkest moments, even when we're frozen by fear or burned by betrayal, We can choose hope. We can choose to rebuild. We can choose each other. The applause was thunderous now. People rose to their feet. Clara stepped away from the podium, her part finished, but Damien was suddenly there, Leo's hand in his. "Wait," Damien said into the microphone. The crowd quieted, curious. He looked at Clara, and she saw nervousness in his eyes. This man who'd faced down criminals and federal agents, nervous in front of a crowd about to make a simple speech. "Clara Evans ran into fire to save my son," he said. "She's right that the real courage came later, in choosing to trust, to stay, to believe in someone like me. But what she won't tell you is that she saved more than Leo that night." His voice grew stronger. "She saved me from a life of fear and isolation. She saved my son from growing up in a fortress instead of a home. She took a man who saw enemies everywhere and taught him to see possibilities instead. And she did it all while being an incredible mother, a brilliant nurse, and the strongest person I've ever known." Damien pulled a small box from his pocket, and Clara's breath caught. "Clara," he said, dropping to one knee as the audience gasped, "I'm done being careful. I'm done calculating risks.
I'm chosen brave.
Will you marry me?" The world narrowed to just his face, his hope, his love. "Yes," Clara whispered, then louder, "Yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, simple, elegant, perfect, and kissed her while the crowd erupted in cheers. Leo jumped up and down, and Mia screamed with joy, and Rico stood at the back of the auditorium shaking his head with a smile that said, "Finally." When they pulled apart, Damien whispered, "Thank you for running into my fire. Thank you for running out of your darkness," Clara whispered back. Later, as the sun set and the celebration continued inside, Clara found herself alone on the foundation's front steps. The building glowed behind her, every window lit, every room alive with laughter and hope. She looked down at her hands, at the faint scars that remained from that night. Battle scars, she'd told Leo. Proof they'd survived. A single crimson rose appeared beside her, placed by Damien's quiet hand. He sat down, Leo and Mia trailing behind to join them. "Look what we built," he said softly, staring at the foundation. "Look what we're building," Clara corrected, taking his hand. Below them, the city lights flickered on, one by one, pushing back the darkness. The Elena Foundation stood as a beacon among them, proof that mercy was stronger than fear, that love could rise from ashes, that even the worst fires couldn't burn away hope. Clara leaned against Damien's shoulder, their children playing at their feet, and watched the night come alive with light. She'd run into flames and found her future. He'd walked out of darkness and found his redemption. And together, they'd built something that would burn bright for generations, not with the fire of destruction, but with the eternal flame of mercy and second chances. The clinic's lights glowed against the night sky. Proof that even in ashes, love could build something everlasting.